the research that you've done into autism and what that means, and so it's good to hear that. That's very good. Just quickly, one of style and I suppose context. What is the language of the building? What I would say is very office-like, and it's also the same on all facades. Or the similar.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Put simply, I guess aesthetic became kind of secondary for me in this project. So I wanted to provide a fairly simple backdrop for that heritage building, so the heritage building could come forward, but at the same time emphasise the surfaces that the children would be in contact with more than just the facade. So the facade, I agree, is very plain and simple and similar on most edges, because most of the emphasis has been put into sort of the positioning and the levels of the rooms and how they interact with the courtyard spaces rather than what the building looks like.
Sure. Maybe just show an image of the foyer.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're inside the building.
Mm-hmm.
So what's this saying about the parents and the children with autism? What's the language? Because I'm trying to understand language. I understand some of the resources that people have.
Yep.
What's this saying to the parents and the children? Using your own words, if you like, in terms of the effect it might have on children, the way that architecture might play with autism.
Yeah. I'm not really sure how to answer that, except to say that it's a hard thing with autism because there's such a stigma related to it. So in a way, I guess in the beginning there was that thing of trying to do something that draws the attention of the public, but at the same, in a way draws attention and sort of educates in a way, but at the same time protects. So I guess the architecture was sort of very inwardly centred in terms of protecting those children, but at the same time sort of creating a building that attracted attention through splashes of colour and things like that without directly sort of saying this is autism. If you know what I mean.
Rebekah, you are incredibly thorough and concerned, and I just like your approach very much. I think in terms of this difficulty in the community, I think it needs people like you helping with this sort of situation. And I think that your addition for the courtyard model works beautifully, that the sunshine comes into those rooms, and I think that your second floor for the 3 to 6 year olds up that cantilevers out into the courtyard works very beautifully, and it would be a lively place to be.
I would hope so.
I think it's got a really nice quality. I would beware of hard surfaces.
Yes.
Like in that image, because it'll reflect the sound like anything, and maybe that's not such a good thing there, but that's a small issue which you can address very easily. So I think I think that it is conservative, but I think that that's a good thing in this case.
I think the suggestion of it from this eye height looking through to the model gives a lovely sense of it being open, but if we go to the ground plan, there's something I don't understand. The floor plan.
The floor plan of the ground?
Now, that corner building is shown as not having any openings.
Yeah, no, I did that sort of deliberately to just establish that as the existing building, so I just wanted to,
but
I know it's not.
It totally tells a different story to what's there, because what's there as existing is influencing the new. So it's important that you read that in the plan as well as in the model, because it gives a kind of sensibility that the older building is reflecting on your decision making for the additions. So I think you should correct that if you're going to show it to anyone, just to correct it in the plan, because when you read the plan, you want to read that. You read the cut about a metre above the floor, you would see a lot more of the sort of permeability of it than is coming across, because I was thinking it would totally change my reading of the courtyard. And the permeability here, I'm wondering if you can't get that. You've packed a lot of secondary rooms up against the courtyard, and maybe sometimes it's nice to have some solid bits. But I'm wondering that corner might actually benefit from having some opening into it, trueness, and having some solid bits everywhere. Could you not get more than one tree in? Because I'm thinking that seasonal quality is wonderful for summer and winter. And letting light, there must be beautiful deciduous trees you could think of using. You could at least have smaller ones.
I was going to say, you probably fit in some smaller ones, but in terms of, that's a big maple.
Rather than having one big one, although I love big trees, and we all do, to have some smaller ones that you could actually control the height of and be able to get the spread, I think would work well. But I too think you've obviously done research into existing facilities and followed the debate on autism, because it's very contested territory about what you need and what you can't. There's horse remedies, and there's working with animals and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of therapies out there, and you probably will, if you go into that the health sector at all, you will probably, as you say, you would need to be keeping up with all of that information. Thank you.
No, I agree with both Britt and Rick. Rick in particular, it's a very competent scheme, very complete scheme, very, very well researched scheme too. You can see that. You can see that it's got understanding written all over it. There's a friend of mine who has who looks after autistic kids in Tucson. And they're finding that animals are starting to play she has horses in particular, a big part in their education, the kids' education, because of course animals don't know you're autistic.
That's right, they're not discriminatory.
They're not judgmental or anything. It's quite interesting. And these kids that I think she's got 15, that she's looking after, this is Rick's wife, Jean, Troy's wife, are like improving at much greater rates than the other kids. So there's interesting possibilities now in these places, and I wonder if there's a case for that. The other thing that they're finding is environment is very important as well, the actual physical environment they're in. And I think Rick mentioned, or Chris mentioned the foyer there, and I think the next step for you would be taking those environments that you've made and turning them into giving them somewhat more stimulus in terms of the children, how they interact with their own personal room environment, so the textures do change, and the quality of light is still across the floor in a certain way, and it brings their attention alive and that sort of thing. So I think for me that would be the next step in a scheme like this. But you've got the order of the scheme organised such that you can do that. And it's talking about trees in the courtyard. That's another thing. I remember we looked at a scheme last year where there was terrace down the side of the hill, which was autistic or healthcare, and trees became a very important thing too. In Papua New Guinea, for the autistic kids who aren't segregated, by the way, from the other kids, they're actually put into school and they're looked after by the kids and all that. Autistic children, when they're young, up until 2, are put in billums under trees. And that they are absolutely fascinated and held by the light and the movement and the sound through the trees. It's quite interesting. And I'm sure it's age old. I don't think it's something that just
fascinating.
And a friend of mine had an autistic kid and he carried him everywhere.
Yeah.
This is Rebekah.
Yeah.
Carried him everywhere, and he was just part of the family. They visited me in Sydney once, and he carried them up 84 stairs, this young kid. And this young kid had no ability of self-control at all. It's interesting. They weren't segregated at all. So maybe there's also a sort of social environment here.
Yeah.
that
Oh,
could be,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know.
The intention was that because it's integrated, that word integrated means that it's essentially both mainstream children and autistic children in the environment, so that they can interact and learn how to integrate.
It'd be good
socially.
to have like a cafe or something where people could come and sit and talk, and the kids are all playing. You know?
So there's one in the Heritage Building, the ground floor of the Heritage Building there. That's intended as a public building with an indoor play area at the end with a restaurant next to that toy shop. So it's all there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very competent in terms of the problem. Well done.
Andrew.
Yeah, well done, Rebecca. Very hard all year. From every single tutorial, every presentation, go with the side change. You know, passion and knowledge of the subjects just completely comes out in the way that you kind of talk about it. I think, and I like that you've got this little kind of flares, like the connection between the old and new building. You know, you've shown that you've got a real sort of high design talent in there as well. You're quite inventive through the detailing phase, so certainly got confidence that you can take your professional life anywhere that you want to go. This is also a personal kind of fascination. You're not kind of limited, you know, like, limited is the wrong word. You know, you're obviously setting up within a very realistic context for a real client for this kind of building, but no, I think you do, you know, like a fairly unattractive heritage building to have to kind of tackle with. So there's a lot of real, you know, challenges that you've taken on and solved very well.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.